little bit about what we do at Artificial Solutions, and I'm going to spend most of my time talking about this, is we make it easy for people to talk to technology in a way that is more conversational. So we do that through natural language understanding. We have a hybrid approach for artificial intelligence, as well as bringing into your system data that you already have. And I'm going to get into that and how we do it for customers like Shell, AT&T, Vodafone, and how we've made it easier for them to make conversation happen with technology. So there we go. So I like this slide because consumer expectations are changing. I am a technologist. I don't play one on TV. When I go home, sometimes everything breaks. One time I wanted to bring my toaster together with my oven and my refrigerator and sort of negotiate with all of them. I'm like, you guys seem to have it out for me, and I would really just like it if we could all just sit down and get together. Maybe the shower can get the hint later. You can, do that diplomacy. But that doesn't happen. But really what is happening is that we are conversating with technology, and that is the expectation. And it's not only happening with younger individuals, it's happening across the board. That we do understand that there is going to be a conversation. We're still talking to each other sometimes, but we do expect that our technology is going to understand us. So a little bit about that. We actually commissioned a global research study to understand what this looks like across the board. So what we found is that 68% of the individuals not only were participating with a virtual assistant, not only were participating in a chatbot experience, but were actually enjoying it and described it with enjoyment. Additionally to that, 49% of those surveyed said that they were increasing the amount of time that they were spending with a chatbot experience. 44% of this 86% were over 45 years old. So the point of this is that this is no longer bleeding edge technology. This is not something that's maybe going to happen. This isn't like a fun nice to have. I think that we got, for sure, an influx of interest 5 years ago when Apple released Siri, for sure. And as much frustration or times that you've wanted to throw poor Siri across the room, Apple has said that there are over 1 billion interactions a week with Siri. So this is de rigueur at this point. Anything moving on that doesn't take this into account, you're standing still to fall behind. Beyond that, though, 70% of those that were enjoying their experiences also said that they got frustrated, that they weren't able to interact with it, that it wasn't understanding what they were saying. Another important point to note is that 90% of the folks from this survey mentioned that they absolutely it was very important to them that it not be obscured that it was a chatbot experience. So trying to, the example I like to give is if you hired somebody to come and clean your house and you got home and there was a sink full of dirty dishes, you'd be super pissed. But if you clean your own house and you come home from work, you're like, eh. So when you give your customers the opportunity to self-service, their expectations for what it's going to be are going to be reduced. So when you have those important interactions that require a personal touch, that's fine. That's great. That should be a person. In the opportunities where a chatbot is exposed, the customer understands this is them doing their own dishes. So again, when we talk about inverting a paradigm, this is a paradigm shift. It's a little bit frightening for some folks. We don't want to, push them into the valley, but there is a change. This is absolutely going to be what is expected, and any customer that doesn't get this experience is going to feel like they have a bad experience. Any enterprise that doesn't see this as a necessity for adoption and that is waiting will be left behind. And this, all I've said, I think that 2017 is absolutely going to be the year where we have a tipping point. My company, we've been around for 15 years. If you think about 15 years ago, SAS was not widely accepted. Salesforce was nothing, right? We've been building out natural language understanding lexicons for 15 years, well before anybody was thinking about this. We deliver it in 35 different languages. We understand how people talk. We understand how they talk in the formal in French versus the informal. If you're a financial institution in Quebec, you may want to be more formal. All of this was waiting for this moment. We're very excited to see that this adoption is absolutely taking place and to encourage everyone to see that to stand still is to fall behind. So Gartner released a study. They said that this is the era of the smart machine and it will be the most disruptive in the history of IT. Well, it's a bold statement, maybe not the most, but again, we do see this as a paradigm shift, that this is actually going to happen. Everyone's thinking about connected homes, connected cars, the Internet of Things, having a device on your wrist that talks to your car. These are going to become de rigueur. Beyond that, 2020 by market research, they said that it was going to be 40% of interactions. And one thing I forgot to tell you is that in a previous study by Gartner, they asked how many of people below the age of 25 were using a virtual assistant on a daily basis. 68% of the people that we interviewed said yes, and they said why? Because it's going to be the future. 13.4 billion. So when you think about how much is this going to mean, right? And a lot of times when you talk about customer experience, this gets lost, right? We're talking about a technology. We're talking about a virtual assistant. We're talking about how much is going to matter to you. You think about how many people bought an iPhone, right? If you give 25 cents per iPhone sold to the value of the natural language piece that's in there, and you think about how many iPhones are sold per year, you're talking about $13.4 billion. That's not even including all of the other technologies that are going to be dependent on these conversations. And again, I want to bring your mind back to that this is a customer experience. It's not just a technology, right? The technology can't fall flat. And if and anybody that has ever had to use a virtual assistant and has felt that they didn't ask the question in the right way, in the right order, just the right words at the right time to get the answer, when you put that kind of an experience in front of your customer, not only have you made an investment in technology that is not worthwhile, you've actually made your customer's experience worse. So until you can actually have a conversation with your customers where they feel that they're actually being serviced, it's just one more layer between you and your customers. So all of these numbers have to do with the value of natural language understanding and what it represents when it comes to virtual assistants. But again, I want to bring your mind back to how good is a virtual assistant if it can't have a conversation. So again, bold claim. Why is this hard? Why is it hard? Why is it so hard to have computers just talk back to us like we like to talk to ourselves, right? Why is that so difficult? So there's a lot of different ways to say a single word, and this is just in English, right? So if I want to say yes, yeah, yep, got it, affirmative, A-okay, that's a lot of different ways to say the same thing, and that's a pretty simple word, right? So add to that, when we think about, did we skip a slide? Okay, so we think about a sentence, right? So something as simple as, tell me a joke. So now we have a lot of different words and different ways of asking them. Understanding the sentence structure, this is the first part of it. These are all the different ways you can say that part. This is the word of it. These are all the different ways you can say that. Another example would be weather. If I'm going to talk about the weather, weather can mean fog, it can mean rain, it can mean a raincoat. It could mean an umbrella. So understanding the structure of how people talk, understanding the whole family of words that represent weather or joke, that takes time to develop. That's what we've done. That's what those 15 years were for. and then doing it in 35 different languages. It's not easy. It's not easy. So when we think about all of the different people that need to participate in this kind of conversation that you're building out with the people that you want to talk to, so whether it's in a gaming community and you want to understand what's happening in your chat rooms, you're going to have some data that you've already collected. It's going to be some that's structured, some that's unstructured, being able to understand what the natural language understanding is, what that unstructured data actually means. And then there's going to be new things that you didn't know to ask yet. So being able to bring in that piece of data, combine it with something out of the box that doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel, right? And then continuing to have that conversation in a way that you would actually talk to someone. So you might interrupt someone. You might have a thread to say, for example, what's the weather like? And by the way, should I buy fruit? And that might be something that you're like, I didn't know that people interested in weather were so interested in apples. Maybe you come back with, oh, you know, I don't know, maybe I can help you. We're going to have an understanding of questions that, hey, people interested in weather are interested in apples too, who knew? So over time, being able to train a machine to identify questions that are being asked that you didn't know that you weren't answering, being able to educate any analyst, any person that is interested in what the reporting is, so bringing in any kind of data from what you have in your CRM, what you have in your call center notes, being able to publish that out to different groups in whatever BI tool you're using, so you can over time create year-over-year visualizations of now we can answer Apple questions. Didn't know that. This is important in terms of sharing information across, but mostly important in terms of the people that you're actually helping. Again, if you're not creating an experience for the people that are interacting with your virtual assistant that helps them feel like they saved time and that they maybe were able to ask, you know, to play around with it a little bit, test it a little bit, ask it for some jokes, but at the end of the day, make it a better experience. And then learn from that, both from the folks that you're sharing on your analyst team, from your linguist team, from anybody that has interest in having exposure to what customers are saying, and then also being able to give them interest in being able to change those conversations, right? So it shouldn't be that difficult with the right tools and with the right understanding of how language works. If you can say, these are ways, 3 ways that people talk about weather, now we understand what we're talking about. Let's also bring in technology or call center notes or, you know, and then let's publish it omni-channel. Where does it belong? It belongs everywhere. It can be on your desktop, mobile, your wearable, your car. All of these are different ways that people are going to expect to communicate with technology. The language piece of it is the piece that's been missing. And that's because it's hard, and that's because it requires a really deep understanding of parts of speech words, ways that people talk, but also a flexibility of understanding where your customers are at. So this is a little bit about how our platform works. I talked a little bit about this before. So again, build. We have a hybrid model. So anything that you have is going to inform what we're going to build out. We're also going to add everything that we've learned. And then we're going to collect. We're going to continue to train, right? So one thing that I think is interesting, if you're thinking about a virtual assistant, how useful is that virtual assistant? It's going to be more useful over time. How much time would you spend training your call center? It's going to learn. It's going to take some time. It's not going to be day one, excellent in your lexicon of specialties. And then we can analyze. We can see where are the places that we didn't know about apples. What are the things that we didn't know that we didn't know? And also, where are the things that we actually really need to make and specify our inroads for product development? What are our customers asking us? Because when it's anecdotal and it's not coming from a place where we can compare time over time, year over year, then it becomes how did your call center feel that morning when they woke up out of bed? Or how many drop-down menus did they have to check in order for them to get judged to get off the phone quickly, right? So this is a place where you can actually hear your voice of the customer. Your IVR is never going to call in sick. It's never going to ask for a raise. It's never going to unionize. And you can, time over time, understand what your customers are actually most interested in. And again, beyond that, you have to deliver. Again, you have to deliver in an omni-channel area. Like anything that, and the more that you can actually reach your customers where they're at, and the faster that you can reach them before your competition, and make it a seamless experience that is conversational, that's the last frontier. That's the last frontier. Everything else that you invest in terms of your technology, you have to do that. That's your customer, your competitors are doing that. You actually need a new CRM, you need security. It's given. You have to do that. But this is the last frontier for differentiation, and it takes place where your customers are at and where your competition isn't, and you're having a good conversation. And then again, bringing in that data, being able to understand what conversations are taking place and where are you failing. Because again, when it's anecdotal, when you hear like, oh, you know, an example I heard, a hospitality industry, the CEO was coming home from a vacation and his neighbor was coming home from one of his hotels, and he was like, oh, we were staying by the pool and there was all this broken glass by the pool. The CEO was like, oh, bring the team together. We've got to take that broken glass down. Across the whole board, nationwide, broken glass. Well, okay, great, that's anecdotal and informational, but how about we actually take a look at what we've gathered from what people are actually saying and make sure that the investments that we're increasing for customer experience are related to conversations and gathering that voice of the customer. And then if it doesn't, you know, come back, then you can say, all right, and you can change it in an agile model, right? Like that you're gaining this information on a regular basis, that these reports are being shared across different departments. If it turns out that that investment isn't trending, reallocate your money. So again, how do we do this end-to-end, enterprise-wide? Build. I talked about this a little. The hybrid model is really, really important. There's going to be some solutions where, sure, give us, you know, heaps and heaps of data, just data all around, just giant folders with folders on folders, and close your eyes and give us lots of money, and in 2 years, we might have a solution. Yeah, maybe. Other places are like, hey, you know what? We could totally just like send everybody to India and hope they type really fast. I've seen all of these solutions. Being able to build it in a hybrid model with an agile development where you can understand, this is what we already know, this is maybe places that we don't have, this is what's out of the box, let's iterate, let's build this together, and let's do it in a very transparent way. It's not a black box. Again, understanding what that is being said. Ooh, earthquake. So again, collecting this, analyzing it, and then optimizing it. So this is a constant loop. This is not a one-time circle, right? This is something that is constantly being iterated on because your voice of the customer is constantly being iterated on. And I think a big challenge is that once an organization feels like they've checked the box on some piece of the voice of the customer, they forget that they weren't listening before that and how important it was. And they say, oh, well, we learned about that problem, we got ahead of it, you know, why do we have to keep listening? Well, your customers' voices are going to be changing. Anybody that has been around is going to be shot down if they're not on that final frontier of customer experience. Some of the slides got changed, but thanks.